Greeting my fellow adventurers and dedicated JRPG friends. Brace yourself for an exhilarating journey through the enchanting realm of Zermia. This year, the highly anticipated Western release of the captivating Crossbow arc and the epic conclusion of the Embony arc has finally graced our screens. Hi there, I'm Shadowwarren, and I'm thrilled to be your guide as we dive into the first game in the series. Whether you're a newcomer looking to learn about the world, or a seasonal fan needing a refresher, this video is for you. Legend of Heroes Trails into the Sky was developed by Nihon Falcom. It was given to us Western fans on the PSP in 2011, 5 years after it was released in Japan. Together we'll embark on a start of an awe-inspired journey through the Liberal Arc, which contains the Trails in the Sky trilogy, so grab your ornament, unleash your magic arts, and get ready to be spellbound as we uncover the origins of this breathtaking saga and unravel the mysteries that lie within. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button now to join our vibrant community. Together we'll explore the vast realms of RPGs, uncovering hidden gems and immerse ourselves in captivating stories. Our journey commences in the vast continent of Zermia, within the peaceful kingdom of Liberl. Just outside the charming town of Roland, here we meet Estelle Bright, a young and spirited girl, eagerly awaiting the return of her father Cassius. As Cassius arrives, he surprises Estelle by bringing an injured boy with him. Together, they carefully place the boy in a comfortable bed to aid on his recovery. Despite his injury, the boy's defiant nature shows through, leading to a brief confrontation with Estelle. However, her assertiveness helps him find his calm, and he introduces himself as Joshua. 5 years here, Estelle and Joshua are now 16-year-old adults. During breakfast, Cassius reminds them that today is the last day of training to become bracers, just like him. Excited, the two head to the Bracers Guild. At the guild, they're warmly greeted by Anya, the receptionist who wishes them the best of luck. They then head upstairs to meet senior bracers Swirlsword Harvey, who assigns them a test in the city sewers. Determined and skillfully, they successfully navigate through the test. As a result of their impressive performance, they are officially recognized as junior bracers. On their way back home after becoming junior bracers, Estelle and Joshua are stopped by Anya. Anya urgently informs them that 2 boys, Luke and Pat, have run off to the tower North Roland, and she needs their help to retrieve their father. Realizing the seriousness of the situation and the lack of time, Estelle and Joshua immediately accept the job and embark on their first official mission as bracers. Marching into the tower, Estelle and Joshua find the boys surrounded by monsters. Without hesitation, they fight together to protect the children, and after the battle, Estelle scolds Luke, but the weaponman was cut short when a monster attacks them from behind. Thankfully, Cassius arrives just in time to save them. They return that evening and hand Cassius a letter from Ambonia. He opens the letter and the contents of the letter upsets him. That night, Cassius shares the news that he's leaving on a business trip. He looked at Estelle and Joshua with a hopeful expression and revealed that he would appreciate it if they take over his remaining tasks. They accept the request, and the next day they say goodbye to him as he departs on an airship. These tasks include protecting a family of farmers from monsters that were devouring their crops, assisting the mayor in retrieving a precious crystal from the mine, where they end up meeting Josette Herrera from Gingers Royal Academy, and guiding and protecting Neil Burns and Dorothy Hyatt during the photograph expedition to Emir's Tower. At the tower, as Dorothy focuses on photography, they ascend to the summit, where they encounter Professor Albert, an archaeologist. He tells them about the Ceratarians, 7 powerful gifts given to an ancient civilization by the goddess. He tells them that these ancient towers are the key to figuring out the hidden Ceratarian in Liberl, the Aurora. Upon the return to town, Estelle and Joshua make their way to the guild to report the latest quest success. They meet up with Shara at the guild and have a reunion, but the reunion is cut short as Mayor Claus abruptly arrives, his troubled expression revealing a new crisis, the robbery of his home. With urgency gripping them, they hasten to the mayor's house to commence an investigation. Their diligent efforts uncover a surprising truth. The thief was Josette Herrera, the seemingly innocent student from Gingers Royal Academy, who paid the mayor a visit earlier. Determined to bring her to justice, they pursued her to the depths of the Mistwood Forest, only to reveal her true identity as Josette Caparilla, a member of the notorious Caparilla Sky Bandits. A fierce clash ensued, leading to the recovery of the stolen crystal. However, Josette seized the opportunity to escape, aided by the arrival of her brother and their airship. Having successfully recovered the stolen crystal, Estelle and the group make their way back to the guild to make their report. Inya, recognizing their accomplishments, commends their efforts and provides them with a recommendation from the region. She also tells them that they would need recommendations from each region of Libero to become senior bracers. Amidst the discussion, a sudden call pierces the atmosphere. Anya swiftly answers the call and returns, bearing grim news. The Aunt Lila, Lind, had vanished over the Bowes region, and the father, who has been on that very flight, was now missing. As the night settled in, they gather for dinner with Shiera. Amid the ambience, Estelle revealed her intent to embark on a journey to find her missing father and investigate the disappearance of the airliner. Her determination was met with Shiera's decision to join her and Joshua on the Superior's quest. The following day, Estelle and Joshua find themselves at the top of the clock tower. Amidst the weight of their upcoming mission, Estelle opened up to Joshua, recounting the tragic memory of her mother's sacrifice to protect her during the war. The haunting recollections of a shell hitting the clock tower, leading to its collapse on Estelle and her mother. Making their way to the Verte Bridge checkpoint, the group engaged in a conversation in the guard station there. They accepted the attainment pass, granting them access to the Bowes region as their mission to uncover the truth behind the airliner vanishing was met with understanding. Arriving in Bowes, their first destination was the local guild bridge, where they encountered Legram, the receptionist. In the conversation, he reveals a significant piece of information. General Morgan is overseeing the investigation into the airline disappearance, has chosen to withhold information about the investigation from the Bracers Guild. This connect was a tribute to his strong aversion towards the guild. Fortunately, Luguin provided an alternate solution. Mayor Bowes had a request for the Bracers Guild involving conducting their own independent investigation. The group readily accepts this offer and heads to meet the mayor. However, upon arriving at her residence, they discover she's actually at the Bowes market. Tracking her down, they engage in a meeting where she firmly implored their aid in the airline case. She stressed the severe repercussions the grounded airliner was causing for the city and urged him to approach General Morgan, despite his reservation to Bracers. Touched by her plea, they agreed to help and were granted a letter of introduction to the general. With their mission clear, they embark on a journey to Hawking Gate, the border between Ebonia and Libero. Upon reaching Hacken's Gate, the group discreetly converses with the guard, withholding their Bracer status, and learned that General Morgan was currently away. Deciding to wait his return, they sought refuge at an inn. There, they crossed paths with a blonde-haired traveler from Ebonia, who recognized them as Bracers. As they conversed, the guards arrived with the news of General Morgan's return, requesting their presence. Departing for the rendezvous, they are unwillingly followed by a Ebonian traveler until Estelle deftly redirects them back to the inn. At the general's office, they adorably portrayed themselves as aides to the mayor, engaging in dialogue that eventually gravitated towards the topic of the missing plane. Separately, extracting information, they discover that it's been hijacked. In a moment of vulnerability, General Morgan reveals that the Caprella bandits were responsible. An adamant slip from Estelle exposes their connection to the culprits, permitting the general to realize their true identity as Bracers. The conversation swiftly sours, culminating in the expulsion from his office. Outside, the tense situation devolves into a heated argument between the two groups, inciting dangers close to getting Estelle's group arrested. In the nick of time, the familiar Ebonian traveler reappeared, this time wielding a lute. His musical interjection miraculously diffuses the escalating tension, compelling General Morgan to release the group and depart. Relieved, they retreat to the inn where the enigmatic traveler reveals his identity as Olivier Leonheim, a wandering bard. He makes a request for the group, as he is new to the region, for them to guide him to the city of Bowes. They agree and set off back to Bowes. Upon their return to Bowes, the group bids farewell to Olivier and proceeds to the guild house to provide a debrief on the information they've gathered from General Morgan. Afterwards, they make their way to the mayor's residence. There they observe an interaction involving Neo, Dorothy, and Lila, the latter obstructing the former to attempts to secure an audience with the mayor. Afterwards, the group meets with the mayor, converting the intricate details of their investigation. Impressed by their dedication, she offers encouragement for them to continue their investigation. As they exit the mayor's house, Estelle recalls Neo and his potential insight. They seek him out and locate him at the local bar. It becomes apparent he has indulged in some drinks. Engaging in a lighthearted exchange, they struck a mutual agreement. Neo would share his knowledge, and in return they would offer their information. At the table, Neil divulges his information that a huge shadow flew over Waverly Village on the night of the incident, and that the Intelligence Division and Colonel Witcher are now involved in the case. In exchange, the group offers Neil the insights they have gained from General Morgan about the airliner case, igniting his enthusiasm to chase after the story. Empowered by this exchange, they are set their sights on Waverly Village. En route, they encounter an ancient tower, throwing monsters to rescue Professor Alva. Continuing their journey, they encounter a red-headed bracer, Huna Shiera. After a conversation that pisses off Estelle, he leaves and we learn from Shiera that he is Agate Crossnet, Senior Bracer. In Waverly Village, the group sought out the Elder, engaged in a conversation and gleaned more information. They discover that a boy named Louis has been a witness to the events in questions. Tracking down Louis, they learn of his account. He has seen two airships, one large and one small, pass over the mountains, vanishing behind the village mines. They thank him and head to the mines to check it out. As they navigate the depths of the mines, they unexpectedly stumble upon Kyle and a small group of sky bandits looting the missing airline. In the midst of confronting them, Kyle unintentionally let slip that they had arrived earlier than expected, causing confusion among Stella's group. The confrontation escalates into a fierce battle which ultimately ends in the bandits' defeat. However, the victory is fleeting, for Kyle employs a smokescreen to shroud their escape. With the bandits gone, Estelle and her companions comb through the airliner in search for potential clues. Regrettably, the efforts yield no concrete leads, leaving them with a sense of unease and realization that seeking aid from the army might be their only option. Yet, fate intervenes. An army detachment led by General Morgan appears. This meeting takes a bad turn as the general orders his soldiers to arrest Estelle's group for being accomplices to the bandits. The following day, Estelle's group find themselves released from jail by Mayor Mayabel, who tells the group that their names have been cleared of any criminal activities. At this moment, the authors discovered a revelation. The general, despite harming animosity towards the Bracers, had once been a colleague of Estelle's father Cassius during his time in the army, although not during his tenure as a Bracer. As we reflect on the circumstances, a summons from Olivier Leonheim reaches their ears. Surprisingly, Cousin Gras has also been incarcerated, this confinement resulting from his indulgence in a bottle of wine that belongs to a mayor. In the twist of fate, Mayor Mayabel extended her leniency to him as well. Returning to the mayor's residence, the group find themselves in discussion recounting the events that unfolded during their time in jail. It emerges that the Corporella bandits have infiltrated the town, conducting a spree of robberies on local homes and businesses. As a gesture of recompense for his involvement in the wine incident, Olivier Leonheim offers his assistance to the Bracers. In the midst of the investigation, their path collides with the royal army. Amidst a heated exchange, an enigmatic officer in black intervenes, compelling the army soldiers to withdraw. To their surprise, this officer revealed to be none other than Colonel Richard, a character previously mentioned by Neil. As Colonel Richard departs, Neil emerges upon learning the identity of the officer. Neil sets off in pursuit. During the meeting with the army, the group resumes their inquiries and seeking to glean insight from the townspeople. During their interactions, they encounter an elderly woman named Cecilia, whose husband was a fisherman at Viridian Lake shore. Upon speaking with him, it's revealed that his friend Lloyd has been fishing at the lake shore and witnessed some suspicious individual near the end. Armed with this new lead, Estelle's party decides to set off for the lake shore. Arriving at the Viridian Lake shore, they make their way to the docks to find Lloyd. Engaging him in the conversation, they learn of his encounter with the unusual juror the previous night. His description corroborates their suspicions, as he's noted that one of the individuals was attired like a student from Jinjin's Warrior Academy. This confirmation heightened the suspicion that the Sky Bandits were indeed in the vicinity. Lloyd also mentioned overhearing plans indicating the bandits' intention to return that night. With this information in hand, the group makes the decision to stay overnight at the lake shore, preparing to intercept the Sky Bandits. As the night unfolded, Estelle and Joshua share an unheartfelt moment, but Shiera drinks Oliver under and through the table. That night, Shiera explains her decision to ensure Olivier's safety by causing him to pass out. The party agrees and resolves to find the bandits. Leaving the inn, they spot the Sky Bandits near the dock where they met Lloyd earlier that day. Opting to eavesdrop, they listen in on a conversation between Kyle and Josette. During the discussion, Josette expresses her worries about Don's recent behavior shift, but Kyle contributes to an encounter with a mysterious man. The exchange is abruptly interrupted as a boat arrives carrying 4 masked individuals clad in black armor. The leader of this masked contingent informs the Sky Bandits that the ransom fund are being provided by the Queen herself. While the bandits and the masked individual continue their discussion, the party initiates a search for the bandits' airship, aiming to intercept the escape route. Upon discovering the airship, they deliberate on their approach when Olivier reappears, bringing forth a plan of action. Later that night, Kyle and Josette return and signal that it's time to depart, leading the group back to their hideout. Unbeknownst to them, a few individuals have secretly infiltrated the airship. The airship lands in a mist-shrouded valley that harbors a concealed base. As the Sky Bandits disembark to report to Dawn, 2 individuals are left behind to guard the ship. Seizing the opportunity, Estelle and the group emerges from the hiding place within the airship and defeats the unsuspecting guards, recognizing their surroundings as Nobel Valley. Nestled between Bose and Roland, party charges to the bandits' hideout with determination. Their mission: to locate and rescue the missing passengers and the crew of the airliner. In a back room, they find the captives hidden away. Inquiring about Cassius, they learn that he left prior to their departure, and there wasn't significant time to remove his name from the passenger list. With reassurance of safety, the group advised the captives to remain in place while they confront the remaining bandits. The party manages to locate the leaders of the Sky Bandits and completely eavesdrops on the conversation among the 3 siblings. It becomes evident that Dawn intends to eliminate the hostages after receiving the ransom. The situation takes a dire turn when the breachers intervene and a battle ensues between the 2 parties, ultimately culminating in the victory for the racists. After the clash, Dawn appears to revert to his normal self, expressing a lack of recollection regarding the airliner hijacking. Seizing the opportunity, Kyle deploys a smoke bomb to facilitate their escape. The chase leads Estelle's group to the base's entrance, where they witness the arrival of the Royal Army apprehending the bandits before they can retreat further. With the Sky Bandits taken into custody, the group decides to make their way back to the guild. Back at the guild, Estelle groups advise Slugran and Mayor Maribel with a detailed account of the events that transpired, along with the lingering questions that remained. Although uncertainties persist, Mayor Maribel commends them for their efforts and highlights the restoration of the peace of the town. In recognition of their achievement, they receive a reward and commendations for their service to the region. As they contemplate Cassius' whereabouts, a visit from the airport personnel presents them with a package intended for Cassius' family. The letter encloses reveal that Cassius' work would detain him longer than expected, causing him to miss the Queen's birthday, and he encouraged them to forge their own paths. Opening the package reveals a black ornament accompanied by a note from an individual named Kate, urging them to deliver it to Professor All. Eager to further their training, Estelle expresses her desire for the group to relocate to the next city, even as Shiera and Olivier opt to return to Roland. The following day, farewells are exchanged as Shiera and Olivier depart via the airliner. About the flight, Olivier engages in a conversation on the deck, only to be taken back when Shiera joins him, revealing her awareness of his role as an operative within the Empire. He discloses that his journey to Liberal was motivated by the intention to meet Cassius Bright, who are known as the Divine Blade. That evening, Estelle and Joshua make their way towards Rouen, passing through the Couronne Pass checkpoint. As the day turns to night, they opt to rent a room at the checkpoint. During the meal, they are pleasantly surprised to unite with Agate. Agate shares that their father entrusted him with some of his tasks, which shows a mix of emotions inside of him before he decides to call it a night. Later on, as the night deepens, a sudden monster attack disrupts the calm of the night. The Walkers awakens Agate, who swiftly heads outside, following closely by Estelle and Joshua. Listening, Agate fends off the monsters. The 2 join the fray to assist him. After successfully driving off the creatures, Agate retreats back indoors, showing his appreciation for their help. With the threat neutralized, he settles back into some well-deserved sleep, and the night resumes its calms. The next morning, Estelle wakes up due to Joshua's prompting. Warning about Agat's earlier departure, Joshua tells her that he had an urgent mission and left first thing in the morning. Continuing their journey, they follow the coastal path of Rouen, assisting a lighthouse keeper with his monster problem. They then reach Marinora village, where they grab a boxed lunch from a local inn chef. While leaving, they come across a girl in uniform outside the inn, searching for a small boy. After a brief interaction where they say they haven't seen him, she leaves. They head to a tranquil spot by the ocean and enjoy their lunch. On the way back to the inn, they encounter a mysterious boy. After the encounter, Joshua notices that the boy has stolen Estelle's bracelet badge. They return to the inn and discover that the boy is from Mesilla Orphanage, located outside the town and overseen by Matron Teresa. Making their way there, they find the boy proudly showing off the badge. Annoyed, Estelle chases the boy around. And as she catches him, he cries out, leading to Estelle being attacked by a falcon. Estelle then sees the falcon land on the girl they met before outside the inn. The boy calls her Chloe, leading to Estelle dropping the boy. Matron Teresa intervenes, calmly convinces the boy to return the stolen badge back to Estelle. During tea, they learn more about Chloe and her falcon Seek, and that she's a student at the nearby Genis Royal Academy. Thanking Matron Teresa, they depart and cross paths with Seek again. Chloe reveals that she has business in the city and decides to join Estelle and Joshua to Rouen. Arriving in the water city of Rouen, the group heads to the local guild. Unfortunately, receptionist Jean is currently in the meeting and can't see them. Kauna introduces herself and suggests they go sightseeing while they're waiting for Jean. Taking her advice, Estelle, Joshua, and Chloe decide to explore the city. Near the warehouse at the dock, they encounter a local gang that tries to intimidate them. As tensions rise, the mayor's aide and the mayor himself, Delamore, arrives on the scene. The mayor mentions calling the Bracers Guild, but the situation changes when Estelle reveals her Bracers badge, causing the gang to flee. Afterwards, they are formally introduced to Mayor Delamore and his aide, Gilbert. The mayor and his aide wishes them luck, and then departs. Returning to the guild house, Jean recognizes Chloe and inquires if she's there to make a request on behalf of the school. Chloe clarifies that she is accompanying Estelle and Joshua. They introduce themselves to Jean, who expresses his delight at their presence, especially since the city is preparing for a visit from the royalty and can use the extra help. The group also learns that the gang they encountered earlier is called the Ravens. Later they leave the guild house and witness the evening spectacles of the bridge rising to accommodate passing ships. During this time, Chloe asks about the lodging rooms, and Estelle decides to check in at the local hotel. They manage to secure a last-minute room on the top floor, and they exit Chloe outside when it is time for her to leave. She kindly invites them to the school festival next week. As they explore the room, they step out into the balcony and wondering about their father's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, two men appear in the room. Initially surprised, they confront the men and learn that one of them is Duke Dunning, the Queen's nephew. After sharing a laugh, the Duke butlers confirm his identity and humbly request a room from them. In a generous gesture, Estelle and Joshua agree and exit the room, leaving it for the Duke and his butler. At the hotel lobby, they learn from the receptionist that all the rooms are already occupied. Unexpectedly, Nia appears behind them and they share their accommodation problems with him. Nia offers a solution. He has extra beds in his room and invites them to stay there. Grateful for his help, they join Nia in his room. There they express their gratitude and inquire about his presence in the region. Neil quickly reveals that he's pursuing a significant story in the area. In the midst of the night at Mesilla Orphanage, as the children are asleep, Matron Teresa is mending clothes. Suddenly, she detects the scent of smoke and the sound of crackling flames. Hurriedly, she rushes to the children's quarters, waking them up and leading them downstairs where a fire has erupted. Amid the chaos, she endeavors to guide the kids to safety. However, the escape route is obstructed when a beam collapses, blocking their way. The next day, Joshua and Estelle bid farewell to Nia as he departs. Then they head to the guild to commence their duties. While there, Jin receives a distressing call informing him that the orphanage has been consumed by a fire. Given that Estelle and Joshua had visited the orphanage the previous day, they are asked to investigate the incident. They readily agree and make their way to the burned down orphanage. Arriving at the orphanage, they begin their thorough investigation into the incident. The efforts leads them to a troubling conclusion. The orphanage was intensely set ablaze. Just as they discuss their findings, Chloe unexpectedly joins the conversation, overhearing them. Thanks to the urgency of the situation, Chloe suggests they visit the children and matron Teresa to ensure their safety. At the inn where the children of the matron Teresa have taken refuge, Chloe escorts the children away, allowing Estelle and Joshua to speak privately with the matron. They share their discoveries and theories, leading towards the belief that malice was the motive, since the orphanage had no valuables worth stealing. In response, matron Teresa mentions a significant detail. The silver-haired man came to the rescue the previous night, before any of the villagers arrived. Chloe returns with unexpected company, accompanied by the mayor and his aide. Together they share their concerns about the dire situation matron Teresa. Seeking assistance and information, Estelle and Joshua provide an overview of the findings thus far. As the conversation unfolds, Stuart Gilbert points to the waving game as the culprit behind the incident, but the mayor strictly challenges this assertion. He proposes the use of his vacation home in Gracia as a temporary accommodation while the orphanage undergoes repairs. The matron asks for time to think it over, and the mayor leaves. Estelle and Joshua then depart to continue their investigation. While deciding their next move, a child named Mary suddenly appears and informs Chloe that Clem, who stole Estelle's bracelet badge earlier, overheard Gilbert blaming the Waving Gang and ran off to confront them. Concerned for Clem's safety, the group immediately gives chase, following him to Rouen. They track Clem to the warehouse where the Waving Gang is located and confront them to release the kid. A fight breaks out, and the group manages to do the Waving Gang temporarily before another confrontation occurs. Just as the situation escalates, Agate arrives seriously familiar with the gang members and intervenes by knocking out two of the leaders. He orders the remaining one to release the child. After escorting from both Agate and matron Teresa, Clem is safely returned to her arms. With Clem back in matron Teresa's care, the group leaves Agate to deal with the remaining gang members. Back at the city entrance, Clem and the matron expresses their gratitude to the group before parting ways. At the guild, they learn that Agate was the previous leader of the Ravens. Agate arrives, and after a short exchange, he takes the auction case from Estelle and Joshua's hands, explaining that senior bracelets are given priority. He then departs. Noticing Estelle's frustration, Chloe proposes that they assist her in participating in a play at the upcoming festival. Although they agree, Joshua is left with a sense of unease. They receive a new quest from the mayor Stuart, which involves recovering a stolen item by phantom thief B. Following the clues left behind by the thief, they are led to a warehouse where they discover that the person carrying the barrel with the missing item was actually the disguised thief. This prompts Estelle to chase after the thief. In the afternoon, they reach Genius Warrior Academy and head to meet Dean of the school, Dean College. He inquires of Chloe about the fire incident and expresses his desire to help. Later, they meet Jill, the student council president who is in charge of the play, and Hans, the vice president. Estelle is assigned the role of a knight due to her proficiency with weapons, and Chloe will be her companion. Joshua learns that the play is called The Marigold of the White Linoleum, and that he's been assigned a crucial role in the play. He realizes that this role is the princess, confirming his bad feeling earlier. During the dress rehearsal, Joshua reluctantly embraces his role as the princess and showcases his transformation. As they continue rehearsing for the play, they fully engage into student life, attending classes and socializing with friends throughout the school day. On the day prior to the festival, they lend a hand to the janitor in decorating the school premises and deal with any lingering monsters within the old school building. While going about their tasks, they unexpectedly come across Jill and engage in a secret meeting with the principal. Later on, they rendezvous with Hans and Joshua in the cafeteria, gathering for a final celebration before the grand event. The following day marks the beginning of the festival, and amidst the festivities, they spot Captain Amanthea and Professor Alba in attendance. Soon, they reunite with matron Teresa and the children. Joshua takes charge of looking after the children, allowing the matron to have a private conversation with Estelle and Chloe. During the talk, the matron reveals her decision to accept the mayor's offer to stay at his vacation home, and will be partying the day after the festival. Joining the group of children behind the stage, Estelle notices Joshua's absence. One of the children informs them that Joshua left suddenly after spotting the silver-haired man who had previously saved them. In response, Estelle and Chloe begin search and eventually locate Joshua on the second floor of the old school building. He attempted to follow the silver-haired man, but had lost track of him. They return in time for the play, and the performance goes off without a problem, resulting in a beautiful presentation. Little do they know, they are being observed by a mysterious silver-haired man. After the show, they engage in conversation with the children and matron Teresa. Unexpectedly, Dean Collins, Jill, and Hans appear, having collected donations for the matron to aid in rebuilding the orphanage. She expresses her gratitude and accepts the money. As the evening approaches, the group bids farewells to Jill and Hans before setting out towards the crossroads that divides Huan and Manoa Village. Just as they're about to exchange their parting words, a distressful village from Manoa Village approaches them in a hurry. He delivers alarming news that Matron Teresa and Bracer Kana have been attacked. Realizing the urgency of the situation, they instruct the villagers to swiftly inform the guild and Juan, while they themselves make their way to the village inn to investigate the incident. Upon arriving at the inn, they first check on the children while being. Then Joshua investigates the condition of Matron Teresa and Bracer Kana, discovering that they've both been rendered unconscious. To this dismay, they find the attackers have also made off with the money meant for rebuilding the orphanage. As they process the situation, Agate unexpectedly arrives, and they brief him on the incident. Agate notes that the Wayfring Gang is absent from their hideout, which makes him suspicious. Teaming up with Estelle's group, Agate and the others set out to gather clues. However, the darkness of the night hampers their progress. Luckily, Sieg the Falcon comes to their aid by indicating the direction of the attackers. With Sieg's help, they gain a clear direction and head off in pursuit of the culprits. Upon reaching the Varan Lighthouse, where Estelle and Joshua had previously visited, they swiftly enter the building and confront the Wayfring Gang. Agate attempts to communicate with them, but something's amiss. Agate perceives that their eyes lack emotion and vitality. He engages one of the leaders, only to discover that his opponent seems stronger than before. After a determined struggle, they overpower the Wayfring Gang members. However, their unusual behavior and strength of the gang lead them to conclude that they are being manipulated in some way. Agate and Joshua share their thoughts, suggesting that they might have been under hypnotic influence that enhances their abilities. Agate mentions there is one group known for such tactics, likely responsible for this situation. At the top of the lighthouse, Gilbert is talking to two black armored soldiers, and we learn that the mayor is behind everything as he wants to open his land for his own gain, while leaving the Wayfring Gang to take all the blame. The stealth group confronts them, and after realizing things are ruined, Gilbert orders the soldiers to attack. After the intense battle, Agate attempts to apprehend Gilbert and the black armored soldiers. However, the soldiers take Gilbert hostage and injured him. The gun pointed at the keeper, they force the bracers to retreat. Seizing the opportunity, the soldiers manage to escape, and Agate and the group pursues them. Reaching a critical decision, Agate chooses to chase the soldiers while Estelle and the other handle the aftermath of the lighthouse and the rest of the case. One morning, Jean requests Estelle and Joshua to recede ahead while she delivers a message to the dean. As they leave, she suddenly apologizes, writing a letter and summoning Sieg. Upon returning to the guild, they brief Jean on their situation. He explains that the Bracer Guild can't apprehend him unless caught in the act, but the royal army can. He urges them to head to the mayor's house to stall him while he calls the royal army over to help. They decide to wait for Clover before heading over. Arriving at the mayor's residence, they are informed by the mayor that the mayor has important guests. Joshua realizes the guest can only be Duke Dunham. They barge in and start telling the mayor they found the arsonist. The mayor initially blames the Wayfring Gang, but the group refutes this. They blame him, and he evidently confirms his role by mentioning the black armored soldiers. He then attempts to shift the blame to Gilbert, but they bring up his plot to build a vacation home on the land that the orphanage sits on. He then challenged them to find proof of why he would do something like this. Neil arrives and reveals he's been investigating the mayor on recovering his massive debt of 100 million meo. Neil questions the reason behind the criminal activity while he is also misappropriating city funds at the same time. Chloe expresses her disdain for him, calling him a pitiful man, prodding him to trigger a hidden mechanism that unleashes two powerful creatures to attack the group. The group successfully defeats the two monsters and confronts the mayor, only to find themselves immobilized by an artifact wand he wields. As he prepares to harm Joshua, a black light emanates, shattering the artifact in front of them. Estelle realizes the light came from the black ornament the dad sent them. The mayor takes the opportunity to quickly escape through a hidden door, with Estelle and the group in pursuit. He leaps into a boat, priming them to do the same. As they engage in the sea chase, the mayor fires shots at them, but Estelle's staff deflects the bullets. The wind shifts, aiding the mayor to escape, until a shadow appears overhead. The mayor, believing he had evaded capture, and wonders if he can help. But the shadow reveals itself to be an airship, which lands before him, blocking his path. The airship is commanded by Captain Julius Schwartz of the Royal Guard, who arrests the mayor on all his charges. At the airport, Julian informs the group that they attempt to interrogate the mayor, but he claims he has no memory of his actions. This situation reminds Estelle of a similar incident involving the Sky Bandits. Colonel Richard arrives, mentioning that he received a phone call from Jean, but Captain Amalfi expresses her surprise at the Royal Guard's stripped arrival, which then takes over the case from the Royal Guard's and departs. Gia also bids her farewell, wishing the Bracers the best. Back at the guild, they provide Jean with a detailed account of the events. Jean informs him that Agate left the city in pursuit of Black Helmet soldiers, and that he was ambushed the previous night. They require about the Black Ornament and its protected flight, seeking information on its nature. Jean advised him to visit Zeiss, a city where most of Liberal's ornaments are manufactured. The recommendation from the region for their help with the Austin case. The group sets their sights on Zeiss, and Chloe expresses her desires to see them off at the checkpoint. Previous night, Agate is seen in pursuit of the two Black Helmet soldiers. He engages them in battle and swiftly defeats both with a single swing of his blade. Just as they are about to be captured, the commander arrives and intervenes, saying they have no quarrel with the Bracer Guild. He orders his men to retreat, and before Agate can pursue them, the commander blocks his path and forces Agate into the door. They engage in a fist battle, coming in a final clash where Agate appears to emerge victorious, only to discover that he's been fighting a clone. As the commander departs, Agate can only express his frustration through a scream. On that day, Estelle's group begins to journey to Zeiss, making their way to the checkpoint known as Air Layton. At the checkpoint near the waterfall, they bid a heartfelt farewell to Chloe. She expresses her gratitude for their assistance and reveals her intention to stop avoiding her own problems. Although not fully comprehending her words, but happy to help, Estelle embraces her in a hug before they part and enter the tunnel. Just as Estelle and Joshua leap through the tunnel, Lieutenant Schwartzer unexpectedly joins them, ready to accompany Chloe and Sieg on their journey. Navigating through the tunnel, Estelle groups encounters a young girl who inquires about the lights within. Joshua recounts an experience with a particular light, which prompts her to dash away. Concerned, they chase after her and find her under attack by worms that are devouring the light. Estelle and Joshua swiftly intervene, defeating the worms, and after the battle, they introduce themselves to the girl, discovering her name to be Tia. Extending an invitation, they ask Tia to join them on the journey to Zeiss. She happily accepts. After reaching the end of the tunnel, they arrive at the basement entrance of the central factory. They then proceed to the first floor of the factory, where the receptionist calls Tia away. So Estelle and Joshua decide to head to the guild, hoping to meet Tia again sometime in the future. At the guild, they meet receptionist Kitika, who provides them with a letter of introduction to the factory chief Murdoch, who serves at the head of the factory in town. The letter in hand, they return to the factory and speak to the receptionist, managing to secure a meeting with Chief Murdoch. Familiar with their father and appreciative of the Bracers Guild, Chief Murdoch agrees to help. They provide an account of their receiving of the Black Ornament and the events in Rouen. After examining the Black Ornament, Chief Murdoch is unable to find any answers. Estelle then recalls Professor R and hands the note that came with the Black Ornament to Murdoch, who realizes that Professor R is Professor Russell, Epstein's apprentice, and the one responsible for bringing the power of the Ornament to Liberal upon his return. Murdoch contacts Professor Russell's granddaughter, and the girl who arrives turns out to be none other than Tia. Overjoyed to meet them again, Tia leads them to her home. Inside, they find Professor Russell deeply engrossed in an ongoing experiment, Eagerly, Tia joins in the experiment, monitoring for getting Estelle and Joshua. Eventually, they all gather to meet the professor, who fondly recalls his past army days alongside Estelle's father. He agrees to examine the black ornament, attempting to cut it in order to study it further, but he finds it is impervious to damage. In an attempt to analyze it, Professor Russell runs a test on the black ornament. However, this action triggers an unexpected chain of events, causing the ornaments to activate, resulting in a widespread power outage throughout the town. Figuring out they turned off the power in the town, they promptly intervene to resolve the situation, successfully restoring power to the town. This recurrence is simply termed the orbital shutdown phenomenon. Chief MODOK appears and starts yelling at the professor for the aberrant town-wide orbital shutdown. The following day, the Southern group meet Professor Russell in his lab as he attempts to unlock the mysteries of the black ornament. He shows them that using an ornament power saw proves futile as the black ornament power disables it. He then switches to a gas power saw, which results in only a small scratch on the ornament surface. During this time, Chief MODOK arrives to inform them that Emo's village's hot spring is experiencing issues. Tia volunteers to repair it and requests Estelle and Joshua to serve as her bodyguards during the task, while Professor Russell keeps trying to crack it open. Upon reaching the village, they converse with Miss Marrow before leaving Tia to repair the engine. Back at the inn, they discover that a guest has ventured outside the village is potentially in peril. Estelle and Joshua immediately set off to rescue the guest and find Dorothy in need of assistance. After aiding her, they return to the village to learn that Tia has successfully fixed the hot spring. They retrieve her and, with the assistance of Professor Russell, are granted the opportunity to spend the night there. The following day, they journey back to Zeiss Central Factory, where they encounter a towering bear-like man seeking directions to the hot springs. After a brief moment of mistaken identity, he departs. Upon returning to Zeiss, they head straight to the Central Factory, only to find an unusual amount of smoke blowing from the premises. Spotting Chief MODOK, they approach him to inquire about the situation. Tia is worried about her grandfather and found that he's still inside the building. With a sense of urgency, they enter the factory and discover that the smoke is emanating from the canisters placed around various floors. Determined to help, they start clearing the smoke canisters on each floor while making their way towards Professor Russell's last known location. Upon reaching the room, they find it empty with neither the professor nor the black ornament in sight. Agate arrives shortly after, and the group quickly briefs him on the situation. As they leave the room, voices from the other end of the hallway grab their attention. Rushing over, they witness Professor Russell being abducted by black armored soldiers by the elevator. They immediately rush in, but they don't reach the elevator in time. Watching outside, they are surprised to encounter Chief MODOK and Dorothy. Inquiring about the black armored soldiers, they learn the soldiers wore the colors of the Royal Guardsmen, and Dorothy managed to take a photograph. Raising the deception, the group led by Agate sets off in pursuit once again. After an exhausted search, they come up empty-handed in the pursuit of the culprits. Faced with a dead end, they call upon the Royal Army for assistance. Captain Amalthea of the Intelligence Division arrives to take charge of the case. She also seizes Dorothy Fordo's course so that news of this won't get out and tarnish the Royal Guard's image. Despite her attempts to persuade Agate to let her handle his case, he adamantly refuses, leading to a tense standoff. Eventually, she accepts his decision and departs. The group then heads to the guild to provide an update and plan their next move. There, they encounter Professor Alba, who informs them that he witnessed soldiers that looked like royal guards entering a local tower he was studying. Realizing that the soldiers in the tower are likely the culprits, the group readies themselves to depart. Tia expresses her desire to accompany them to help save her grandpa, but Agate sternly denies her, causing her to run off in tears. Arriving at the tower, the atmosphere is tense as they wonder if the soldiers are here. Suddenly, they are ambushed by a pack of monster dogs. Climbing to the top of the tower, they finally spot the soldiers holding Professor Russell. The group engages in a fierce battle against the soldiers and eventually reaches a standoff. Just then, an airship arrives carrying more soldiers to aid in escape. The Bracers wait for the right moment to save the professor. When the opportunity arises, the Bracers charges in, only to have the effort thwarted by a missile launched by none other than Tia. Disregarding Agate's refusal, Tia arrives to save her grandfather. Unfortunately, the soldiers take a shot at her, prompting Agate to shoot her and sustain an injury in the process. An unexpected turn of events allowed the soldiers to escape with the professor. The airship departs, and Agate, angered by Tia's recklessness, delivers a stern lecture while also offering comfort about her good intentions. On the way back, they encounter the bear-like man again, who expresses gratitude for their early existence. As he looks at Agate, he notices something amiss, and Agate suddenly collapses. Joshua examines him and discovers that the bullet he was hit with was poisoned. The bear-man introduces himself as Zane Baldak of the Calavan Republic Bracelets Guild and offers to carry Agate to the clinic. At the clinic, Agate receives first aid, but it's evident he requires more specialized treatment that Father Vixen from the church knows of. In the urgency to help Agate, they rush to the church, but informed that the required medicine is out of stock. And Zimio moss is needed as a key ingredient. Determined to help their comrade, they set out together with Zimian moss and visit the guild to learn its exact location. At the guild, they get the information they need about the medicine, and are unexpectedly joined by Zane, who decides to assist them in their quests. They successfully reach the cave where the moss grows and collects it, but they are unexpectedly attacked by the cave guardian, the evil penguin. After a tough battle, they manage to defeat the penguin and leave the cave. They bring it to Father Vixen, who uses it to create the medicine needed to cure Agate's poison. The medicine is then delivered to the clinic to aid Agate's recovery. During the night, Tia takes care of Agate and overhears him speak her name. The next day, Estelle, Joshua, and Tia bid farewell to Zane at the airport, with hopes of meeting him again in the capital. They part ways with Tia, who returns to take care of Agate. Estelle and Joshua, eager to uncover more information about the mysterious events involving the army, head to the guild. There they speak with Kira and share their concerns. She mentions that there has been no response from Lingston Fortress, and the mandatory inspections have been lifted in the kingdom. Dorothy unexpectedly appears, saying she's been taking photos at the fortress, and shows them the photo of Lingston Fortress. In the photo, Estelle spots the shadow of an airship, which Joshua identifies as the same one with their previous encounter. This discovery prompts them to decide to investigate Lingston Fortress to gather some more information about the situation. At Langston Fortress, Estelle and Joshua initially encounter some resistance in their attempt to meet with someone. However, they mention the Intelligence Division and are granted an audience with Major Sid. They introduce themselves and share their knowledge about the mysterious airship, presenting Dorothy's photo as evidence. Major Sid examines the photo and, realizing the significance of the matter, thanks them and leaves. As the door is about to close, it unexpectedly stops halfway, giving Estelle and Joshua the vital information they need. Sid returns and Estelle suggests that they call the central factory to fix the door. As they leave, Estelle notices that the door stopping is the effect of the Black Ointment, and the professor is in there as well. Joshua quickly hushes her, and they exit the fortress with the newfound knowledge. Back at the guild, they're discussing what they learned from Langston Fortress with Chief Murdoch, and speculate that the royal army might be framed, expecting a deeper conspiracy. Agate and Tia arrive. Agate suggesting they break into Langston Fortress to rescue the professor. Kalika mentions that such interference goes against the Bracelet's code as she quotes the code, but she also emphasized the duty to protect the Syrian by quoting another code. The chief agrees with Killer's perspective and asks the Bracelets to save the professor. They brainstorm ways to infiltrate the fortress, but Estelle realizes they could use the airship that goes to the fortress. However, the chief dismisses the idea because the fortress scans the ship, making it too risky. Tia then steps in and reveals that her grandpa was working on a device that could shield them from the scans, providing a potential solution to their problem. As they board the airship with Chief Gustav as the pilot, they bid farewell to Chief Murdoch, who wishes them well on their mission. Just as the airship takes off, Dorothy appears at the airport running after it, and Chief Murdoch confirms to Dorothy that Estelle's group has just departed. Dorothy mentioned that she had obtained new information from the Bracelets Guild in a local newspaper, revealing that the Royal Guardsmen had been arrested in the capital. During their journey on the airship, Tia asks Agate about the name he mentioned while he was asleep. He explains that it's his sister. As they get closer to Langston Fortress, the group of four squeeze into the back of a shipping container, preparing for the covert operation. Upon their arrival at Langston Fortress, Chief Gustav skillfully unloads the cargo. There's a brief moment of panic when they think they discovered an intruder in one of the containers, but it turns out just to be a cat. With the scale behind them, Gustav bids farewell to the soldiers. Later that night, the soldiers are called away for some reason, giving the group an opportunity to exit the hidden compartment within the shipping container. They move stealthily through the fortress, eventually coming across an airship and the black armored guards. Hiding, they find a window that provides a view into the building guarded by these mysterious figures. Peering through the window, they eavesdropped on a conversation inside the building. They witnessed Colonel Richard, Captain Amalthea, Major Sid, and Professor Russia engaged in a discussion about the Black Omen, which Colonel Richard refers to as the Gospel. During the conversation, the professor mentions Cassius, into which Colonel Richard expresses his hope of finding him. However, he also suggests that even if Cassius were to come, he wouldn't be able to stop their plan. Professor Russell questions how Colonel knew about the Black Omen, to which he responds that his sources wish to remain mysterious. Colonel Richard discussed his intention to use the Black Ointment for financial gain, but Professor Russia formally refused to cooperate, expressing his unwillingness to assist in such schemes. Captain Amalthea attempts to intimidate him, but the Professor remains absolute in his decision. Following this text exchange, Lieutenant Lawrence enters the scene and reports that there has been unusual activity in Great Seal, and that the White Wings have been captured. Colonel Richard, Captain Amalthea, and Lieutenant Lawrence simply depart, leaving Major Sid behind to watch over the Professor. Sid talks to Russell and tells him if he could, he can send a letter to his granddaughter. This angers Russell, who tells him to get out. The group quietly withdraws from the window, having confirmed that Colonel Richard and his intelligence division are indeed responsible for the kidnapping of Professor Russell and the Black Ointment. As they move towards the front of the building, they spot Colonel Richard, Captain Amalthea, and Lawrence departing on the ship. Recognizing that it is the opportunity to rescue the Professor, they decide to launch an attack on the Black Armored Guards. As the first battle ensures, and after defeating the guards, they are joyfully reunited with the Professor. Tia rushes into her grandfather's arms, embracing him warmly. The Professor is impressed with their ability to sneak into the fortress, and then requests that Joshua retrieve the Capella unit, which was also taken during his capture. They've been using it to help figure out how to control the Black Ointment. As they leave the room, they begin to make their way across the fortress. Unfortunately, one of the defeated guards manages to hit a button, triggering an alarm and alerting the guards to the presence of intruders. Major Sid takes charge, gathering the remaining guards and notifying them of the intrusion, instructing them to protect the fortress. Through this unforeseen turn of events, the group unintentionally find themselves in the dungeons of Langston Fortress. Inside the dungeons, the group encounters the Capoeira Sky Bandits once more. Dawn questions his presence, but the group remains tight-lipped about their mission. Without absorbing any information, they make the exit, leaving the Sky Bandits behind as they continue the ascent back upstairs. As they navigate the fortress, they hear a voice down a hallway that sounds familiar to Estelle and Joshua. Following it leads them to a room where they once again encounter Major Sid. He divulges the dire situation. Colonel Richard has effectively taken control of the royal army and imprisoned General Morgan. This revelation shocks Agate. Major Sid explains that high-ranking officers have been embezzling funds since the war, and Richard has capitalized on this corruption to seize power. Major Sid goes on to explain that the Queen has been silenced, and the Royal Guardsman has been arrested on charges of treason, all to the evidence provided by Dorothy's photograph. Estelle inquires about the next step, pointing Major Sid to lead him to a hidden door that leads to a water dock. He bids them farewell, watching as they each exit one by one, and only Estelle and Joshua remain. Major Sid shares that he knew their father and admired him as a true hero during his military service. They express their gratitude and bid him farewell, and proceeds to a boat at the end of the water dock. Upon reaching the shore on one side of the fortress, Estelle initially expresses her determination to protect Tia and the Professor. Agate, however, insists on taking the two and disappearing with them to keep them safe. Though Estelle is reluctant at first, she ultimately accepts Agate's decisions, and especially after Professor Russell entrusts Estelle and Joshua with a crucial request: to speak to the Queen and inform her of the ongoing situation. The first says that the Black Ornament was once the intelligence division's and was taken by someone who sent it to Cassius. They found out about the item after the incident in Zeiss and came to collect it. The heartfelt goodbye, Agate, Tia, and Wesley vanished into the night, leaving Estelle and Joshua to finish their mission. And in the capital of Grayseal, Julia Schwartz and Chloe are in a precarious situation as they're being pursued by the Black Armored soldiers. Concerned for Chloe's safety, Julia instructs her to continue on to the city Bracelets Guild, while she herself stays behind to confront the pursuing soldiers. Initially hesitating, Chloe eventually agrees and leaves Sieg to continue ahead. However, as Chloe makes her way towards the city, she has a change of heart. She calls Sieg and instructs him to return to assist Julia. As Chloe continues her journey, a sudden rainstorm begins. To her surprise, she encounters an airship carrying another group of these Black Armored soldiers, including Lieutenant Lawrence and Alan Richard. They intercept her, clearly with the intention to speak with her. In the capital, within the Embonian embassy, Olivia Leonheim stands at the window, looking at the rain. This competitive moment is interrupted by the arrival of a man named Mola. They engage in conversation about recent events, particularly the sightings of a man within the Embonian Empire and the attacks of various Bracelets Guild branches throughout the Empire. They introduce that these attacks are orchestrated by an individual or group that's hired Jaggers, a group of professional mercenaries. The situation is concerning, especially given the delicate relations between nations, as the wounds of the war that ended only a decade ago still affects the geopolitical landscape. Miller suggests that Olivier return to the capital of the Embonian Empire, but Olivier declines. He believes that in the absence of the primary lead, they should put their trust in their capable subordinates. Alpha expressed confidence in their abilities and believes that they can handle this situation as a team. The next day, Estelle and Joshua are having a conversation with Chief Murdoch and Kilika about the events for the previous night. They wonder if they could go to the capital with everything going on. Kilika tells them they should be able to. Murdoch informs them that the military will be coming soon to inspect the factory, and after the discussion, they bid Chief Murdoch farewell. Estelle and Joshua plan to take the airliner to Grayseal, as it's faster than walking. Kilika expresses her gratitude for their assistance and provides them with a recommendation for the region and arranges the tickets to Grayseal. Siblings thank her and make their way to the airport. At the airport, Estelle and Joshua collect the boarding passes for a conversation with Chief Gustav. However, their plans take an unexpected turn when a clerk approaches and informs them that the ship has been delayed due to terrorist activity, and the military from the fortress will be coming first. In a swift decision, Estelle and Joshua swap their boarding passes for walking sticks and make a hasty exit from the airport just as the military led by Captain Mafia arrives. Upon arrivement at Sanctum Gate, Estelle and Joshua seek to the guard station to sign their entry papers for Grayseal. While doing so, the guards engages in small talk and mention that there's a martial arts tournament in Grayseal, wondering if the two are headed there. However, the mood changes when the guard notices the bracelets badges and becomes cautious and informs his boss about the situation. The boss then approaches and expresses concern about the presence of the two bracelets. The guard shares information about the recent arrest of the warrior guards and the existence of terrorists in the region, some who might have been pretending to be bracelets. The boss hints at a possibility of further questioning and asks Sarah and Joshua could accompany him. The situation becomes tense and it appears it could take a difficult turn for the two bracelets. However, just as things are escalating, Professor Alba appears on the scene. He declares that his son Joshua are his bracelets, providing him with a cover story. Professor Alba vouches for their identity and insists that he has hired them for his protection. This intervention by the professor helped confirm their identity and ease the situation with the guards. With their identity confirmed, the tensions ease. They sit down with Professor Alba. He expresses gratitude for his help and tell him what they learned from the guards about the terrorists. And then Al asks if he was willing to accompany them to the capital. Professor Alba agrees and they prepare to continue their journey together. On the road, Estelle, Joshua, and Professor Alba come across a group of Royal Army guards. These guards inform them that the Herb Royal Villa is currently off limits as the army is using it as a base of operations for the ongoing investigation into the terrorist activities. After arriving in the capital, Estelle and Joshua part ways with Professor Alba. They proceed to the Bracelets Guild House to report in. Inside, they encounter other Bracelets from different regions who appear to be in a hurry, as they mention their participation in a martial arts tournament. The receptionist at the guild introduces himself as Elman, and Estelle and Joshua provide him with an account of their experience in Dice, including the encounters with the Intelligence Division, the Black Armored Soldiers, and their mission to rescue Professor Russell. They inquire about the process of meeting the Queen, and Estelle proposes the idea of approaching the palace normally to gather information discreetly. Josh agrees with the plan, but advises Estelle against expressing her desire to meet the Queen openly in front of the guards. Before they leave, they ask Elman about Chloe, but he informs them that no one by that name has come to the guild. Estelle and Joshua gather information from the guards and discover that the Queen is currently unwell, with her nephew Duke Dunham assuming temporary authority in her absence. The princess, contrary to the guards' expectation, is not in charge. Duke Dunham arrives and Harry departs for the Grand Arena to watch the tournament. A guard inadvertently shares that Duke Dunham is known for his laziness and that Colonel Alan Richard handles most of the day-to-day affairs in the Queen's absence, effectively giving Richard significant control over the entire country. Armed with this knowledge, Estelle and Joshua decide to head to the arena to keep an eye on the Duke. At the Grand Arena, Estelle and Joshua take their seats and spot their friends from the Bracers Guild, as well as Zane, participating in the martial arts tournament. After various rounds, the Queen's nephew announces that the winner of the tournament will receive an invitation to the dinner at the palace. This piques Estelle's and Joshua's interest, and they decide to talk to their Bracer friends. The other Bracers suggest that Estelle and Joshua join Zane's team, as he's currently competing alone due to a change in the tournament rules. With this in mind, Estelle and Joshua head to the guild to find out Zane's location. Elman informs them that Zane is either at the Inn's ball or at the Calabar embassy. At the ball, Estelle and Joshua hear the distinctive sound of a piano being played. It triggers a sense of unease in Estelle. Following the music, they are led to a surprise reunion with Olivier Leonheim, who is playing the piano. They sit down and have a conversation with Olivier, and during which they learn that he went away to a Bonia embassy after Shira had defeated him in a drinking contest one too many times. Olivier mentions that he hasn't seen Zane, which prompts Estelle and Joshua to decide to check the embassy. As they prepare to leave, Olivier attempts to follow them, but Estelle sends him back to the bar in her own unique and forceful manner. Estelle and Joshua decide to inquire with the guard outside the Calabar embassy about Zane's location. It is discovered that Zane has gone to meditate around the Herb Scenic Route, near the Royal Valley. While on the way there, they come across a nun named Sister Ellen, who is under attack by monsters. They intervene and successfully save her, but Sister Ellen shares that she's from the local chapel before more monsters suddenly appear. And as combat begins, Zane joins the fight to help. After the skirmish, they begin a conversation with Zane, but is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a company of Black Armored Soldiers. These soldiers now identify themselves as the Special Operation Unit of the Intelligence Division. They take Sister Ellen with them and escort her back to Grayset. Back at the bar, Estelle and Joshua sit down with Zane and ask to join his team in the martial arts tournament. Zane is curious about their intentions, and they explain that they want to test their skills in the competition. Zane agrees to let them join. As they discuss the possibility of a fourth member, Olivier suddenly appears at the top of the stairs. He introduces himself to Zane and tells him that he will be interested in joining the team. And after learning that Olivier wields an orbital gun, Zane welcomes him to the team, and they now have a complete group for the tournament. The next day, they gather at the hotel and head to the martial arts tournament, where they face off against the Raven Gang from Iran. During the tournament, they also spot the Caprella Sky Bandits and the Spec Ups led by Lieutenant Lawrence. After Lawrence's fight, Joshua recognizes his sword style. At the end of the day, they bid farewell to each other. Joshua, intrigued by Lawrence's skills, decides to gather more information about him at the Bracers Guild. However, the Intelligence Division is keeping details about Lawrence a secret, and the Guild knows nothing. Back at the hotel, they meet up with Neil Burns, who takes them out to dinner. Over dinner, Neil expresses his suspicion that Colonel Richard's up to no good, but lacks concrete evidence to support it. He asks Estelle and Joshua for their help in uncovering the truth. Estelle agrees to help, but she asks for something in return: access to the military information. Joshua, on the other hand, requests information about the leaders of the Intelligence Division. Neil agrees to their terms. In exchange, Estelle and Joshua provide him with detailed information about the various incidents involving the Intelligence Division, including the Sky Bandits, the fire in Iran, and the kidnapping in Zeiss. Neil becomes increasingly concerned and wonders why the high-ranking officers of the military aren't taking actions. Estelle and Joshua tell him that people like General Morgan are in prison and can't help. Neil deduces that Estelle and Joshua have hidden motives for participating in the tournament. He asks them to share these motives, but they can't reveal certain details about the mission and involvement in the tournament. The next day, Estelle's group has a surprise reunion with Dorothy. She tells them that Neil wants to meet them later. As the tournament begins, they engage and win a battle against their fellow races, and witness Lauren's team as they dominate the Sky Bandits. After the matches conclude, Estelle and Joshua make their way to a newspaper building, where they meet Neil. He provides them with folders containing information on Colonel Alan Richard, Captain Monthia, and Lieutenant Lawrence. Additionally, Neil informs them that the Colonel is seeking potential marriage candidates for Princess Claudia. However, the conversation is cut short as Neil receives an urgent call, which causes him to depart abruptly. Estelle and Joshua head to the Braces Guild to pass on the information they received from Neil. They inform Elman about Lieutenant Lawrence and his past as a Jagger. Elman explains that Jaggers are essentially the opposite of and rivals to Braces. Later at the end, they are stopped by soldiers who inform them that a curfew is in effect, and it's too late to be outside. They comply and thanks the guards, returning to the room. However, upon their arrival, they discover that someone has broken in. Investigating further, they find a letter left behind, instructing them to head to the local chapel. At the church, Estelle and Joshua are surprised to discover that the nun they rescued earlier was the person who sent the letter. Sister Eileen reveals herself as Lieutenant Julius Schwartz. She explains that he is hiding now that the royal guard is being hunted, and that Colonel Richards has taken control of the army. She requests that the two of them win the tournament and meet with the Queen. However, Estelle and Joshua explain that they already have the same request from Professor Russell. Lieutenant Schwartz is relieved and changes her request to have them heed the Queen's words when they meet her. She entrusts them with a letter addressed to the head maid, which will allow them to bypass the guards surrounding the Queen's room. As they converse, Lieutenant Schwartz shares stories about Estelle's father, Cassius Bright, and how he was known as the Divine Blade. She mentioned that she had the opportunity to be taught by Cassius when he was in the military. The conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a guard, prompting them to quickly exit through the church's back door. After leaving the church, Estelle and Joshua find a park where they have a heart-to-heart conversation, with Joshua promising Estelle that after everything is over, he would tell her about his past. The next day, as they head to the tournament room, Estelle and Joshua and their friends encounter the Mayor Roland, who has arrived in a capper to the invitation from Duke Dunham, the Queen's nephew. Estelle's group emerged victorious in the tournament, defeating Lawrence's team and becoming the winners. They received the reward and an invitation from Duke Dunham, the Queen's nephew. However, unbeknownst to them, Colonel Richard has a conversation with Lawrence after their match. He believes that the Bracers are no longer a threat, as their plan is nearing completion. As the Estelle group exits the tournament building, they're intercepted by Mueller Vander, who introduces himself to the rest of the group. Mueller scores Oliver for his action and participation in the tournament as an Emonian citizen. Despite Oliver's protests, Mueller insists that he cannot participate in the dinner and forcefully escorts him back to the embassy. As they arrive at the castle, Captain Amalthea approaches them to congratulate them on their victory. She asks about Professor Russell's whereabouts, but Estelle and Joshua remain unaware of his current location. Back in their room, they decide to take a walk around the castle. Zane opts to stay behind. During the stroll, they encounter various important figures, including Mayor Claus, Dean Collins, Chief Mordok, and Mayor Mirabelle, all of whom have been invited to dinner. Continuing their exploration, Estelle and Joshua attempt to enter the Queen's chamber, but guards denied them entry. However, their encounter with the head maid, Hilda, changes the situation. They present the letter from Lieutenant Schwartz to Hilda, and Estelle and Joshua return to the head maid's room, where they explain their desire to meet the Queen and deliver Professor Russell's message. Head maid offers an idea and instructs him to come back to her after the dinner is over. As they return to their room, the maid arrives to collect them for dinner, and during the meal, the conversation turns towards the Queen's health. Alan Richard reveals that the Queen's health has been failing, and she's planning to allocate the throne to her nephew, Duke Dunham, due to her condition. This news shocks the other guests, but Estelle and Joshua are not surprised, as they already knew about this development. After dinner, they venture out of the room once more, while halted by Colonel Alan Richard. He seduces their true identity as Cassius bites children and asks if they have some time to speak with him. During the conversation with Colonel Alan Richard, he shares how he met Cassius Bright after Alan's time at the military academy, especially his deep admiration for Cassius, whom he considers a true hero after what he did in the 100 Days War. Alan explains that Cassius left the army after his wife passed away in order to care for Estelle, and acknowledges that many in the army still view Cassius as a hero of the nation. Having said his piece, Alan tells Estelle and Joshua that he has no regrets. In the main room, Estelle and Joshua are briefed on the plan to disguise themselves as maids to gain access to the Queen. They both change into maid outfits, with Joshua dressing up convincingly, showcasing his ability to pass as a lady. The assistance of the head maid, they successfully bypass the guards at the entrance, who makes advances on Estelle and Joshua, and make their way inside the royal family chambers. Once inside, they head to the princess's room and change back to their regular clothes. They head to the Queen's chambers and finally meet with the Queen of Liberal, Alicia von Aslis. They introduce themselves to her and sit down to deliver Professor Russell's message. She listens attentively and begins to share her own information. The Queen tells them about the event that occurred 10 years ago when a massive orbital reaction was detected beneath Grayseal. Professor Russell had investigated this event and it was discovered to be an ancient artifact buried beneath the city. Joshua explains that some artifacts can still function after being buried for centuries. The Queen acknowledges this and expresses her concern that the Black Ointment could disrupt the artifact. She wonders how Colonel Richard could have found the information about this hidden research. Then she recognizes Estelle as Cassius' daughter and explains how she knew him and how he still takes requests from her even after his retirement from the army. Then she asks if they would like to hear a story about his past. The Queen's story delves into the history of the 100 Days Wars and its devastating impact on Liberal. She explains that the war began with an incident in Ambonia, which led to Ambonia invading a Liberal. Within 2 months, Ambonia had gained significant control over the Liberal, and it seems like all hope was lost. However, it was her father's brilliant counter-offensive plan that allowed the Liberal to fight back and push Ambonia forces out. Tragically, during this time, her father had already lost his wife in one of the attacks. His duty in the military had kept him away from her when she passed away. The Queen acknowledges that Estelle knows the rest of the story about her father and how he left the army to become a bracer for her, to be there for his daughter. Following her story, the Queen makes a request for the bracers to rescue her kidnapped granddaughter and the others who have been taken. She reveals that the coup began when she chose her granddaughter to be the next queen, a decision that didn't sit well with Colonel Alan Richard. Alan's original plan was to transform the country to a militaristic state, but when the Queen selected her granddaughter, his aspiration was thwarted, leading to him to initiate the coup. Instead, Joshua agreed to undertake this mission, understanding the urgency and importance of the situation. They leave the Queen's chambers and head back to the head maid's room. As Estelle and Joshua are making their way back to their room, they find themselves unexpectedly confronted by Captain Amathia. She questions them about their whereabouts, and things look tense. Just in the nick of time, Zane intervenes, pretending to be quite drunk. He summons over to them, flirts with Captain Amathia, and then casually asks Estelle and Joshua if they managed to find snacks she had requested. They say the kitchen is closed, so Jane suggests that Captain Amathia drink with him. She says she's busy and apologizes for the misunderstanding and leaves. Once back in the room, Zane asks what happened when they met the Queen. When Estelle and Joshua stay tight-lipped, he reveals a surprising piece of information. He received a letter from their father Cassius. In the letter, Cassius foresaw the turmoil and challenges that were unfolding in the country and requested Zane's assistance. He also mentions a martial arts tournament in the region that Zane could fight in, and that his 2 children are now junior bracers who he might work with. Astounded by their father's foresight and the depth of his planning, Estelle and Joshua open up to Zane, sharing all the details of their encounters, the letter from Professor Russell, and their meeting with the Queen. Zane then agrees to help them. Unbeknownst to Estelle, Joshua, and their allies, in a concealed and remote location, Colonel Richard and his group from the Intelligence Division are conducting reconnaissance. Suddenly, they are ambushed by mechanical monsters known as Archanisms. These automatons are formidable opponents, but Colonel Richard, along with the help of Lawrence, manages to swiftly defeat them. After their victory, the group starts a calculation for the glory of liberal, reaffirming the commitment to their cause. Instead, Sal learns to bracer ranks, and that Zane is an A-rank bracer, while her father is an S-rank bracer, which shows that he has handled natural level matters. This realization slightly irks Estelle, who drunkenly expresses a hope that Cassius will return to safely resolve the current crisis. Joshua adds a layer of suspicion, noticing that it seems the conspirators deliberately waited for Cassius to be out of the country before launching their actions. Loran suggests they should convene an all-hands meeting to come up with a plan for the rescue. He also suspects that the Herb Royal Valley could potentially be the captor's location. He tells the sales group of locating the other bracers in the area. Furthermore, he advised them to seek out Neo and Julia, as well as the other Royal Guardsmen who are in hiding, to help. The Stellar Group manages to locate both Conan and Grant. While attempting to recruit Neo at the newspaper, they discover that he hasn't returned for 2 nights, leading them to suspect that he's been captured as well. The group promises to rescue him as well. They head to the church for Julia, but find out she had left the church earlier. They encounter Kurt at the end, who turns aggressive when he hears about the Black Ointment. Zane interferes and brings him back to his senses. Kurt remembers that he was the one who stole the Black Ointment from the Intelligence Division and sent it to Cassius. However, his memory is hazy after that point, as someone called out to him, blocking his recollection. He then agrees to join their plan. The cell group successfully locates Annellis in the park, and she readily agrees to join their mission. Once all back at the Bracers Guild, they begin the process of devising the strategy to infiltrate the Herb Royal Villa and rescue the captives. After discussing various options, they settle on forming 2 groups for the mission. However, they express the need for a 3rd group, to their surprise, Lieutenant Julia Schwartz appears and offers her assistance, along with her guards, to serve as the 3rd group in their rescue plan. As night falls, the operation to rescue the hostages at the Herb Royal Villa begins. Julia and a portion of the Royal Guards trick the soldiers out of the villa, and with the other bracers providing backup, start a fight with them. Simultaneously, a 2nd group of Royal Guards charge into the villa to engage the remaining soldiers. The Star Group storms the villa, and after wandering around the villa, they encounter Neil's inside contact. The contact informs them that the rest of the hostages are located in the ballroom. Inside the ballroom, they find Neil and the girl they believe to be Princess Claudia. Estelle approaches the girl and introduces herself to her. However, to Estelle's surprise, the girl responds by saying, "So, we meet again as promised." This unexpected comment makes Estelle realize the girl before her is not the princess, but Chloe. Shocked and confused, Estelle questions Chloe about why she's here, and the whereabouts of the royal princess. Neil then reveals the surprising truth. Chloe is in fact Princess Claudia of Liberl. With this revelation, Estelle and Joshua show the entire story of the events that have transpired since the last encounter with Chloe. However, the conversations are interrupted when 2 guards emerge holding General Morgan's granddaughter hostage. Just as they're about to make their demands, Sierra and Olivier steps in with their respective weapons. Cheryl's whip and Olivia's overgun to thwart the guards' plans. Sierra explains how she and Olivier ended up at the villa, and as she shares her story, Julia and Sieg appears. The group finishes cleaning up and securing the villa, allowing the hostages to get some rest. The group gets together to assess the current situation. Estelle asks why Sieg is here, and learns that Sieg's the royal messenger, and that he left the note in their hotel room. The conversation then leads to the princess's safety, and Chloe speaks up, and requested them to do the impossible. Rescue the queen, who's been locked away in the castle. They agree, and Joshua points out they're going to need a clever trick to do this. Chloe then opens a map of the sewers and outlines her plans. The following day, Lawrence informed Amalthea that they lost contact with the villa, prompting her to put the castle on high alert. She sails to protect the castle while His Excellency is away. At the Herb Royal Villa, Julia briefs everyone on the upcoming operation. At noon, Joshua's team, consisting of himself, Zane, and Olivier, will infiltrate the castle via the sewer system and open the castle gates. Julia's team, consisting of herself, the Royal Guards, and the Bracers, will then use the open gates to storm the castle in the front of her assault, distracting the guards. Meanwhile, Estelle's group, consisting of herself, Sierra, and Chloe, will arrive on a commandeered airship on the roof and rescue the queen. With the tasks clearly assigned, teams began honestly preparing for the expected missions. Joshua's team besieged the Grand Seal first, heading to the sewers and successfully opening the hidden door. They then wait by the secret passage that leads to the castle. Meanwhile, Julia's group waits by the entrance to the city, waiting for the part in the plan. Saugu, superior and determined, gets ready to take off in the airship to execute their mission. As noon strikes, Neil takes Doty so they can get the scoop on the biggest news story in history of the newspaper. Joshua's team opens the hidden door in the sewers and heads towards the gate. They dispatch the guards stationed there and open the gates, surprising the remaining guards. Julia's group takes the initiative and launches a frontal assault on the guards and the warrior castle, bringing their attention away from the other teams and creating chaos within the castle grounds. Amalthea sends more reinforcements, but she is shocked when the Stellar teams lands on the roof. They engage in battle, and after the victory, Shiro learns of Amalthea's identity. They rush to the royal keep and confront Duke Dunham and his guards. After learning that Chloe is Princess Claudia, Duke Dunham belittles all women, provoking Estelle's group to defeat them without holding back. They then proceed to the Queen's room, and on the balcony, they meet Queen Alicia. Lieutenant Lawrence, however, is guarding her. Chloe tells him to stand down as the coup is over. He explains to the group that they're only seeing the surface level events and not the deeper ones, before revealing his face and engaging in a fight with the group, ultimately coming out victorious. As the Queen appears to pity him, Lawrence drops the word Hamel, causing her to pause. He quickly mentions that it's be too late to stop the Kono before jumping off the balcony and disappearing. As the group reunites, their spirits lifted by the success of the daring rescue mission. Queen Alicia expresses her profound gratitude. However, her tone soon grows serious as she imparts crucial information. She reveals that Kono witches must be stopped at all costs, and she discloses Kono Witch's true objective, to attain the Shining Ring, known as the Aloha. Joshua, with his vast knowledge, indicates the Aloha is one of the serotonins, ancient artifacts granted by the goddess, Erios, to an ancient civilization. He explains that the Aloha possesses extraordinary power to control nature itself. To make matters more obvious, Queen Alicia recalls an old royal family warning, a prophetic message that now appears to hold grave significance. They piece together that the Shining Ring is sealed beneath Great Seal, and that the black ornament they encounter is being used to unseal it. Intrigued and alarmed, the Queen leads them to the treasure room, where a dynamic chamber awaits. In the treasury, the group enters the room and discovers a peculiar lift. Joshua examines it closely and determines that it's locked. Just when they're completing the next move, a victorious arrival occurs. Professor Russell, Tia, and Agate make their entrance and introduce themselves to the group. They fill them in on Kono Witch's plan and their ally. With an inventive prowess, Professor Russell swiftly employs a tool to unlock the lift. However, the moment of relief is short-lived, as a warrior guard appears and informs them that the military reinforcements are en route. Queen Alicia and Julia, understanding the gravity of the situation, opt to remain behind to manage the upcoming chaos. With a goodbyes exchanged, the group ascends to the elevator, finding themselves in the ruins of an ancient civilization, a place steeped in history, mystery, and dangerous monsters. Deep within the ruins, as they search for Kono Witcher, they once again face Captain Amalthea and two machine monsters in a confrontation that ends in her defeat. Undeterred, they venture forth into the ancient caverns until they finally come face to face with Colonel Alan Wishart. During the confrontation, Alan expounds on the power of the Aloha and how it could provide Liberal with the strength and technology it needs to stop another invasion attempt by other countries, asserting that this is why he formed the Intelligence Division. Estelle vehemently disagrees, arguing that the true power lies in the people, like her father and others, to protect the world without relying on mysterious forces. Alan calls her strong, but tells her that others cannot be as strong as her, and can be led to temptation. He states that he's gone too far to stop his plans now. Joshua asks Alan one question, reveal where he learned about the Aloha and the Black Ornament, prompting Alan to retort that he doesn't have to answer. Josh doesn't just that he can't answer. that the power of the Black Ornament and the info on the hidden alloy was given to him by someone, implying that his ideas were manipulated and implanted, much like others cases they encounter across the country. This revelation deeply irks Alan, but he remains resolute. Summoning his minions, he tells the group if they wish to stop him, they must defeat him, as he launches an attack on the group, preparing for the final confrontation. Alan is defeated. The Black Ornament reacts, triggering a complete orbital shutdown throughout the ruins that is felt everywhere. However, the sudden interruption ceases, and Joshua explains it feels like something's been released. The device behind Alan activates, sending out a warning message. The message confirms that the first barrier on the sealed alloy device is no longer operative, and declares the activation of the gospel. The voice then says the device towers have been enabled, and the 4 towers surrounding the room activate and begin to descend to the floor. Afterwards, the voice announces that the destruction of the seal on the Winged Guardian is confirmed, and just then, a wall inside the room opens up, revealing a 4-eyed robotic creature. The group swiftly moves to engage it, but the creature, considering them intruders, initiates its assault. After fighting both the first and second form of the Winged Guardian, the group is on the floor tired, hoping they won, when Alan reappears calling it a Winged Guardian and wondering if it was built to destroy the facility. He questioned if the Guardian was sealed alongside the alloy and was reactivated to stop people trying to take it. He wonders where the alloy is when the Guardian rises once more. The sales group tries to get up, but suddenly are not fast enough and are about to be attacked when Alan rushes in and attacks the Winged Guardian, trying to hold it off and telling them to go, but sadly his help is short-lived. He gets grabbed by the Guardian. He tells them that his plan has failed, but maybe if he could help them, it would be repentance enough. Before the Guardian can crush him, Cashier appears and with the swing of his staff slices the Guardian's arm off, saving Alan. He then tells the group to finish the Guardian. After the Guardian's defeat, Cassius thanks everyone for their help and tells his son Joshua that he's home. Olivier introduces himself and Cassius thanks him and tells him he wants to talk to Olivier later. Alan gets up and talks about how Cassius left the military, and without him it led to this. Cassius walks over and punches Alan and tells him that it was Alan's mistake keeping the delusion of Cassius in his mind and that he is just a man. And after all his schemes, Alan couldn't stand on his own 2 feet. He thought he could retire with Alan picking up the army in his stead, and that they both need to stop running away from things. A week later, with the coup thwarted and the intelligence division arrested, the city of Grainstar is in celebration. The opening celebration is held at the castle, with the queen addressing her citizens. Stella and Joshua, along with the rest of the racers, are at the guild. For the pivotal role in rescuing the queen, they are given a recommendation for service in Granseal. And additionally, with the other recommendations for the other regions of Leroy, they are made full-fledged bracers by their father. However, their joy is bittersweet as they learn that their father Cassius is returning to the army to help clear up the mess left behind by the intelligence division. As they walk with their dad, Estelle and Joshua learn that Alan can't remember much about his actions. Similar to Kurt, they piece together that Lieutenant Lawrence Belgar must have been the one who influenced Richard and provided him with the Black Ornament. Estelle describes what Lawrence looks like with his mask off before Cassius leaves the 2 siblings, telling them that they'll be staying at the castle for the night. After the father's departure, Estelle and Joshua head to the park and sit down for a moment. Estelle decides to get some ice cream for them, leaving Joshua alone. Alone in the park, Professor Albert unexpectedly appears before Joshua, offering his congratulations on becoming a full-fledged bracer. He expresses concern about Joshua's pale appearance and asks if he's feeling alright. Joshua admits he's been feeling a little unwell and shaky whenever Albert is around. He begins to share his suspicion, recounting cases when people had their memories manipulated and how Albert's presence seemed to coincide with these incidents. Joshua recalls Kurt's similar reaction to Albert at the stadium. He asks Albert straight if he's the person causing all of this. In response, Albert commends Joshua for his possessiveness, acknowledging that even with his memories manipulated, Joshua managed to piece things together. He then drops a bombshell, admitting that he has been behind it all along. Abba decides to reveal the truth, snapping his fingers to break the manipulation, allowing all of Joshua's memories to return. Joshua is in a shock. As Abba continues, claiming that when Joshua's heart was in the tatters, he was the one who rebuilt it. He was the one who placed a soul in his empty vessel. With a trembling voice, Joshua stammers that Abba has the power to twist the minds and the memories of the people, and he is one of the 7 snake apostles called the Agnesis. Joshua calls Abba by his real name, Wiseman the Faceless. Finally, Abba discards his disguise, addressing Joshua by his full name, Joshua Astray, and revealing Joshua's true identity as Enforcer number 13, the Black Fang. Joshua is quick to point out that Wiseman was behind everything and that he knows Lawrence. Wiseman chuckles, expressing his satisfaction that he didn't waste Joshua's memories of Lawrence, and that Lawrence would be happy knowing that Joshua was thinking of him. With Joshua questioning if Wiseman is here to finish him off, Wiseman responds that no, the first part of his plan is already complete. He simply wanted to stop by and say hello. Joshua presses him for information about the plan for the Aurora, and the goals for the mysterious society. Wiseman taunts Joshua, suggesting that if he wants to know more, he can always rejoin the society. He mocks Joshua's new family, offers him true freedom as thanks for the role he played in Wiseman's plans. Confused and shocked, Joshua asks how he's been helping Wiseman. Wiseman reveals that he's used Joshua not as an assassin, but as a spy, allowing Joshua to get close to Cassius and provide valuable information. And unbeknownst to Joshua, agents would appear to him and he would disclose everything about Cassius and the Bracers Guild without Joshua even remembering the encounters. Cassius has been the biggest obstacle in his plan, but with Joshua reports, they devise a plan to remove him from the equation. Wiseman thanks Joshua again for his 5 years of assistance. In desperation, Joshua screams out that Wiseman must be lying. Wiseman takes this opportunity to explain that Joshua was superior to regular soldiers and the perfect weapon, his Black Fang, his greatest creation. He claims that everything Joshua was created by him. Wiseman leaves. Joshua with his newfound information and a choice to come back to Ouroboros if he ever wishes. Joshua is left in turmoil, questioning his identity, his allegiance, unsure of what to do next. As Wiseman returned to his Professor Albert persona, he meets with Estelle and congratulates her on her new status. She thanks him and heads off to get ice cream for Joshua. Wiseman watches her go, remarking that she would be an interesting person to observe. In the evening, Estelle finds Joshua on the terrace of the castle. True to his promise, he begins to tell her a story about his past. He speaks of a young boy who lived alone and was unable to speak, feel, or even eat due to his broken heart. All he could do was play his harmonica. Despite the caretaker's effort, the boy grew weaker day by day. One day, a magician appeared and offered to heal the boy if they followed him. Desperate to save the boy, they agreed. The magician, however, had a dark intention. He realized he could shape the boys into anything he desired. So he transformed the boy into a murderer. And for 2 years, the boy carried out the magician's deadly orders, becoming known as the Black Fang. And one day, the boy received orders to kill a hero, a man who had protected his queen during a time of war. But the hero proved too powerful, and the boy fled. He counted some of the magician's servants who attacked him, and unexpectedly, the hero intervened and saved the boy's life. He brought the boy into his home, where the boy met a girl, and for 5 years they lived together. Joshua concludes his story, revealing that he is the boy from the tale, and explaining that he must leave to confront the magician who had controlled his life. As the story sinks in, Estelle is left in confusion and disbelief. She hopes the story isn't real, but Joshua doesn't confirm its truth. He then says goodbye to Estelle and gives her a sedative, causing her to fall asleep. Joshua disappears into the night, leaving Estelle to grapple with a shocking revelation. And so concludes the thrilling journey through the events of the first game in the Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky series. Your feedback is invulnerable, so please feel free to leave comments on how I can improve or what you enjoy about this storytelling experience. Share your favorite moments from the game or recap, whether they are heartwarming, intense, or surprising. Your thoughts are greatly appreciated. As we bid farewell to this chapter, I look forward to embarking on the next game's stories recap with you. Until then, stay curious and eager for the new tales to unfold. A big shout out to my dear friend Vanamore, who has been by my side throughout this journey, providing invulnerable assistance and support in bringing this video to fruition. Check out her channel below to explore her creative content and join her adventures. Your contributions have been instrumental, and I'm truly grateful for your partnership on this project. Thank you, Vanamore. And absolutely don't forget to show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more exciting content. Stay tuned for the next video in the series.